This is week 19, the secret of right action. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. One of the most famous stories in the Gospels is that of Martha and Mary. Jesus visiting the home of Martha, was teaching while her sister Mary sat at his feet, absorbing his divine love and wisdom. Martha, meanwhile, busied herself with serving her guests and was upset with Mary for not helping her. "Lord," she cried, "doesn't it matter to you that my sister has left me to do all this serving alone? Please ask her to help me." "Martha, Martha," Jesus answered, "thou art careful and troubled about many things, but one thing is needful, and Mary hath chosen that good part, which shall not be taken away from her." This story is classic, for Martha's complaint is very understandable, and not on the surface of it spiritually wrong. Jesus may well have told Mary to get up and help her. We don't really know that he didn't, considerate as he always was of others' needs. But the teaching here doesn't concern the obvious dilemma of devotees, to work for God or to spend all one's time in prayer. It concerns rather the attitude of the mind. Jesus didn't tell Martha, "Martha, you are doing too much." He told her rather, "You are letting your work affect your inner peace." That was the contrast. Not work versus contemplation, but restless preoccupation versus peaceful absorption under all circumstances. As it says in the Bhagavad Gita, the 2nd chapter, actions performed under the influence of desire are greatly inferior to those which are guided by wisdom. Happiness eludes people when they act from self-interest. Seek shelter, therefore, in the equanimity of wisdom. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om. This concept of, what yogis call karma yoga is one that's really pivotal and important in our path. Karma yoga is comprised of two words, karma and yoga. Karma, we know often in the modern lexicon, most people know what karma means. It simply means action. That action that is put out comes back to us, good or bad, positive or negative, neutral even. The action that goes out into the world, there's a similar response. But that action that is ego-derived is one that creates more karma. Karma yoga, thus, is action that frees us from bondage, that frees us from the ego. So if we're doing karma yoga, as Jesus was trying to tell Martha here, we're doing action, we're doing service that is free from ego motivation, from ego desire. I was reflecting on this. My first real experience with karma yoga, with a tangible experience of karma yoga, was one when I had first come to Ananda Village. I was living in Santa Rosa before that in high school, and I moved to Ananda Village to take a month-long internship. And I had learned meditation before and was familiar with the teachings, but I didn't really have a regular meditation practice. So I wanted to come to Ananda Village and take this internship to really establish that and to go deeper in the teachings. And one of the core things that we did that month was karma yoga. And we had classes, and we chanted and meditated and did yoga postures and talked about the philosophies of yoga. But then we went into, before we did the service that we were going to do, we really focused our minds and were brought into the process of understanding how we were going to do this service. And it was done fully with the intention, not of just getting the thing done, but of doing it consciously and with the energy of not just serving, but of serving with God, and of worshiping God, of doing it with a sense of inner communion. In other words, we were taking those same practices that we did in meditation and we were applying them to the service that we were doing. So we were trying to keep our mind focused on God through japa, through saying God's name, or through a mantra like Jai Guru or God, I love you, or whatever comes. And I think occasionally there was a ringing of a bell to remind us if we were caught up in whatever we were doing, to remind us to think of God, to remind us to keep God in our hearts as we were doing this activity. And I remember coming out of that just being so blown away, because the experience I had was one of feeling, I had been meditating and I had had uplifting meditations, but at the end of that period of karma yoga, I felt as uplifted as if I had gone through a whole meditation. And then we were going to have a lunch meditation, or a meditation before lunch, and I'd already felt like I had meditated. I had already felt uplifted. I had already felt this expansion of consciousness because I was focused on God and I was doing it with God and for God, and my heart was open to God. So that, and I think about the times when, I had done, unwillingly done chores as a child. I felt, at the end of that, I felt exhausted. I felt like I had less energy than when I started doing some little simple task or something. So it's really what Jesus was talking about and trying to bring Martha's awareness to was that attitude with which we do something. It makes all the difference. And it's not just the work that we're doing. It's not just looking at our work, but it's anything that we're doing. When we're giving a Sunday service, when we're sitting in the audience listening to the Sunday service, when we're walking down the hall, when we're doing mundane things, when we're driving in the car, we can still have that attitude of karma yoga, because everything we're doing is some action in some form or another. It doesn't have to just be relegated to the work that we do. There's a beautiful story that Swami relates to in The New Path. There was a disciple of his, Mrs. Brown, and she did office work for Yogananda. And at one point, she worked diligently and trying to serve her guru and worked hard day and night. At one point, Yogananda came to her and he said, "You're working too hard. You must not work so hard. You've worked so hard in past lives. You must not work so hard." She said, "Okay, yes, Guru." And she pulled back and she tried to not work so hard. And then the next time she knew it, he added more work. "Okay, I need you to do this, and I need you to add this. I need you to do this." And so she had to get going and work. She got working harder again. And then he came to her again and he said, "You must not work so hard." And she said, okay, yes, Guru. And then he'd add more work again later to her schedule, and she'd get caught doing all the work and busying herself with that. And this went on a number of times, back and forth, until finally she came to him and she said, "Guruji, maybe we could supplement the word work for service." And he said, it's been a good show, hasn't it? But it's just that thought that we're working or that we're serving that can change our whole attitude, that can change our whole frame of mind in what we're doing and how we're doing it. There was this passage that I was reading that Swami was talking about this, talking about karma yoga. I want to read it to you because it's very poignant. He said, "To serve God with the right attitude is purifying. It opens the heart to divine love and enables that love to flow out to others, changing their lives." This teaching of right action that Jesus is relating to Martha has three main points to it. The first one is non-attachment. When we're serving, it's important to be as non-attached as we can. The Bhagavad Gita talks about it as action without desire for the fruits of your action. So it's good to not desire how things are going to end up, but also, as in the case with Martha, not how they are going to happen as well. In her case, she was desiring some help from Mary and wanted things to be a certain way, and was trying, was caught up in the details of it, which was contributing to this kind of restless action, rather than just serving selflessly, allowing what is to be a flow, a divine and divinely guided by that flow. So non-attachment is an important piece of all of this. The second part of the teaching is keeping our mind focused on God, because that's important. We can be non-attached, and that's fine, but bringing God into the equation is an important piece of all of this. But just like meditation, when we meditate, we're not just trying to think of God and keep our mind on God. An important part of meditation is activating the heart and devotion. Yogananda called kriya-yoga the airplane route to God, and said that you can overcome much karma through doing this advanced meditation practice. But he said the kriya is only effective and only done correctly when done with devotion. And so it is in karma yoga as well. We need to keep our mind on God, but we also need, the third step is inner communion. We need to activate our heart. We need to have devotion to God, and in so doing, we kind of activate this key of karma yoga, which brings about all of the things that we've been talking about, which brings about the blessings. Because when we open our heart to God, we're not only loving God, but we're allowing God's love to flow through us. We're allowing ourselves to be a channel for God. And so in that, we're serving God, and we're allowing God to be the doer through us. And therefore we receive that, as Swamiji says, the channel is blessed by that which flows through it. So as we activate our hearts and open our hearts and our service to God, we are blessed by God flowing through us and serving through us. So naturally, that experience that I had in the karma yoga experience I was talking about was well designed for me to experience karma yoga in its ideal way. And oftentimes the work and the things we do are busy, and it's difficult to keep our mind on God. So what do we do? What do we do when we're caught in restlessness, or we're caught in stress and difficult situations? It's the same thing again that we do with meditation. We just bring our minds back. We just remember. As the beautiful word smriti, divine remembrance. We just remember. If we can hold God in our heart, we can remember by feeling that love in our heart. We just remember. Whatever we can do, we can set a little alarm throughout the day to remind ourselves. Maybe it's every half hour. There's just a little chime that goes off and reminds us to think of God, to offer up a little prayer of gratitude to God for the day, for the challenges that we have, for the things that we're doing. It was interesting. I was reflecting about this, because sometimes it's easy to get caught in the things that are very challenging for us, and we naturally want to try to make our lives simpler and easier, so that maybe we can hopefully we think we will not be so stressed, or things, we don't want things to be so challenging. But I was reading this quote. There was this beautiful book that Anaya, I think that's her name, I'm trying to remember, Anaya Gamow and David Gamow wrote on their experiences with Swami Kriyananda. And in it, she quotes him as saying, "I feel sorry for people that have easy lives because they don't grow spiritually." And I was reflecting on that, because I hadn't heard him say it like that before. But Yogananda said, an easy life is not a victorious life. And it makes you think that, well, then we should be praying for a difficult life, shouldn't we? If we want a victorious life, we should be praying for a difficult life. But we don't really need to pray for it. I mean, difficulties will come and challenges will come. If you are dedicated to God, He will give you the challenges. He won't forget you. He won't forget you. So, but it's helpful to remember that the things that we're doing when challenges come, to be grateful for the opportunity to grow spiritually. Because that can help us to shift from a perspective of tension and resistance to one of openness and gratitude. And it's just that shift that can bring us into a state of karma yoga as opposed to just a state of karma. So there's a story of a woman saint who was getting close to passing on her deathbed. Her body was suffering from ailments. I forget what it was. I wish I remembered her name too. And her disciples were around her, and they were expressing sentiments of feeling sorry that she had to go through this, and sad that they were seeing her in this state. And one of them tried to bring a positive outlook to the situation and said, "He is no true lover of God who doesn't suffer for God." And she said, essentially, that's a good try, but more is needed. And another one offered to try their hand at this and said, "He is no true lover of God who isn't willing to suffer for the beloved." And she said, "No, more is needed still." And they said, "Please, Guruji, help us to understand how we can understand this." And she said, "He is no true lover of God who doesn't forget their suffering in contemplation of the beloved." This is the supreme attitude that we should hold in everything that we do. We shouldn't be so caught up in the things of this world that we forget God. We need to forget the things of this world because we're so caught up with God that the bliss of God fills us in our action, that we feel joy in the service that we're doing, that we feel God flow through us, that we feel that peace and the love and the bliss of God's presence. One disclaimer: when you're feeling that bliss, don't operate heavy machinery. But otherwise, go for it. Feel the bliss of God in everything that you're doing. Swami relates a story in his book, The New Path, and he was explaining how Master said that every karma needs to be worked out in some way or another. And he said, even that little desire that I had for an ice cream cone way back when, he said, yes, oh yes, even that. And it was a little daunting to Swami, to say the least, and he was thinking about it, and at one point it occurred to him that he loved Indian food. He loved a good curry, and he came to Yogananda and he said, "Master, should I work on this? Should I work on overcoming this desire for curry? Because it's something that I'm going to have to work out, and if I keep having it, it's going to keep being there." And Master said, "Don't worry about it. When bliss comes, everything else goes." So focus on that. Focus on the bliss of God. Focus on the love in our hearts for God. Focus on God in everything we do, and everything else will work itself out. God bless you.